Okay, it's 11 a.m. and we have 4 guests today, and we want to make sure that we go through everything that we want to go through today. So thank you for joining, and let's get us started. The captioning feature has been activated for this webinar. If you click on the CC button that should be at the toolbar in the bottom of your Zoom screen, and you press show subtitles, you will be able to see the closed captioning if you require it. And you can also close it or hide it as well, as whatever is your preference. So good morning, everyone, and welcome to this webinar that it's entitled Family-Centered Practice from the Perspective of Aboriginal Infant and Child Development Programs. I am Erica Cedillo. I'm part of the team at Inclusion BC and will be your host during this session. I would like to start by acknowledging that Inclusion BC's head office is located in the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Kakite First Nation, from where I am joining you today. Our staff and board members live and work in the unceded territories of Indigenous nations across the province. We recognize and support the inherent Indigenous rights and titles throughout the province of British Columbia, the implementation of the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, the 94 calls to action by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and the BC Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act. During November, we are all celebrating National Indigenous Disability Awareness Month, and I'm going to show you my t-shirt that I'm proudly wearing today. This month is celebrated to bring awareness of the barriers and issues that Indigenous peoples living with disabilities and their families face every day. And this morning, we are honored to feature the work of the Aboriginal Infant Development Programs and Aboriginal Supported Child Development Programs. Our panel in this session will introduce us to the core principles and foundational ideas of family-centered practice as it applies in these programs. I have a couple of housekeeping reminders. We are all very proficient in Zoom, so thank you for keeping your mics on mute. This helps us to reduce the amount of background noise for the session. If you have questions or comments, you can please put them on the chat, and our chat monitor today is Claire Inkster. She will be following the chat and will bring up your questions and comments at the time. If there's no time to address them or something is missing, we will take your name and email address and we can follow up after the session with you. Leah Iglesias is our tech support today. They are waving at you, and if you're experiencing any difficulties, please contact her directly on the chat. And in your reminder emails, you can find her phone number and email address if you get disconnected from the session. This webinar is being recorded and will be posted on Inclusion BC Virtual Learning Series website. And without taking further time from our core session, I would like to introduce our panelists today. We have Jackie Watts. She serves as a provincial advisor for Aboriginal Supported Child Development Programs in BC. Jackie. We have Diana Elliott. She is a provincial advisor for the Aboriginal Infant Development Programs in BC. Rona Sterling Collins, she serves as the regional advisor for the Aboriginal Infant Development Program and the Aboriginal Supported Child Development Programs in the Thompson, Shuswap, and Caribou region. And Tanya Brown is the manager of Mother Bear Child Development Programs for Squamish Nation. I would like to recognize and acknowledge the difficult times that many people across the province are living today. Our thoughts are going out to them, and we're hoping that the community at this time comes together to support each other, that these are times where we can show up the best of ourselves in supporting. There's a lot of social media that is going on in ways to support. We hope you find a good way to channel those efforts that you are doing to support those in need in our province. And without taking more time, I would like to pass it on and start with Jackie. Over to you. And I know Rona is going to bring up the slides for you to follow. Thank you for joining this morning. Over to you.
Morning, everybody. Uklama, Wiyaslamo, Sashat Aksa. I'm calling from my home office, Sashat First Nation, which is located in Port Alberni, Vancouver Island. Welcome to the Aboriginal and Infant Development Programs and Aboriginal Supported Child Development Programs of BC. Both of these programs are separate and supported by the association, the BC Aboriginal Association of Friendship Centres and the Ministry for Children and Family Development. Both AIDP, ASCD support Indigenous children and their families. As children age out of AIDP, most often will transition to ASCD. Let's see. AIDP and ASCD programs share quarterly newsletters, group emails, and a provincial advisory committee. AIDP, ASCD programs have regional advisors, practice guidelines, manuals, and websites. And as you can see listed below are websites. Next slide. AIDP offers support to families and infants who are at risk for or have been diagnosed with developmental delays. The AIDP has existed since 1992 and is one of the longest running Aboriginal early years development programs in BC. Programs are voluntary, family centered, and primarily focused focused on children ages years, 0 to 6 years in some communities, most often until a child transitions into kindergarten, and then the school districts usually take over. AIDP consultants support families by providing home visits, activity planning, and developmental and family needs assessments in culturally sensitive and meaningful ways. AIDP consultant support also assist families in accessing other health and social community services. Working with families, not just their children, supports early and lifelong learning and supports healthy outcomes for children. Sorry, everybody, I'm a little bit nervous. To support children who require extra supports, this is the Aboriginal Supported Child Development programs. To support children who require extra supports to be included in childcare settings and communities, sometimes invited by school districts to participate in individual educational plans, the IEPs. Such inclusion nurtures a child's self-esteem, identity, and allows the child to participate in settings that will support development along with their peers. Having a setting where children can get the supports they need to be included helps a child to grow and learn in safe and nurturing environments. ASCD programs are developed with cultural values, beliefs, and traditions in mind, respective of the child's environment and community of support. Based on the Indigenous rights of the child, Aboriginal children and families will be supported to reach their fullest potential through a strength-based, holistic, and culturally responsive approach that honors the whole child and places the child at the center of the circle of support to ensure that they are included with their childcare, preschool, and community care settings. Culturally relevant and safe support. When programs and services are led by Aboriginal communities, this leads to greater participation, retention, and satisfaction in programs. Our next speaker, Diana Elliott, Provincial Advisor for AIDP.
Good morning, everyone. Hello out there, wherever you are. And I just want to echo that we hope everyone is safe. If our colleagues aren't here today and they plan to be, we know that they're busy looking after themselves and their families. So I'll just start by quickly introducing myself. Haitka, thank you, is thank you in my Coast Salish language. My Coast Salish name is Thaqualat, and my Nuchalnath name is Naskuasaks. I'm very proud of my heritage. My father is a descendant of Chief Seattle, and my maternal grandfather was a hereditary chief, the last hereditary chief in that nation before we had to go through the Indian Act and do the election process. And my maternal grandmother's father was Scottish. So I'm a gene pool throwback in that heritage. And I want to say why I'm sharing this is because if we're going to be talking about family-centered practice, we're also going to be talking about cultural safety and some assumptions that we make. I know that when this workshop was posted on Facebook, there was questions about the identity of the four of us speaking today. In their mind, only one person looked Indigenous. So I would just want to let everybody know, this is who I am. My parents, like I said, are Coast Salish and Nuchalnath, that is Chief Seattle. there in the corner, and I have relatives who went to the Port Alberni Indian Residential School. I'm related to the two of the ladies in the front there, one on my dad's side and one on my mother's side. The tall lady is my grandmother, my mother's mother, and her father was Scottish. So I just want to say that as an introduction, as to talking about cultural safety, talking about working with families, and really as kind of a reminder to get to know us, and maybe we're Indigenous, maybe we have heritage, we have a backstory. So I'm just going to take this time quickly to ask people to maybe not be so full of assumption. And I also want to take a few minutes of my time to acknowledge my colleagues on this call, the four of us. 10 minutes does not represent all of our years of experience and knowledge in working with Indigenous children and families. So I just wanted to put that out there. So here we go. Aboriginal Infant Development Programs is based on this quote from an elder from 2004. I won't read it, you'll get the slides, but it really shows the child in the center of all of the community members. And it really kind of talks about the roles that we had with our children. If mom and dad were working, it really was the grandparents that were raising the children. And we didn't have childcare, we didn't have daycares, we had grandparents while dads and moms did their things. And sometimes it was aunts and uncles and big cousins. So family-centered practice, this is what it looks like to AIDP and how we move forward in our practice. So we can move on. Part of family-centered practice is the way we work with families. So if we consider here, I titled it Hard to Reach, Non-Compliant, No Show for Appointments, Doesn't Step Up. And these are the things I've heard. I've heard all of these things that are here on this page right now. It's been a little worse since the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, having people just not understand who we are. And that comes back to safety when working with Indigenous children and families. This is our background, this is our history, this is our trauma, this is our learned experience. And while we're healing, all of these things are in the forefront right now. And these are the comments that are made back about working with Indigenous children and families. So I kind of want to say here about having to develop a comfort level working with Indigenous children and families that you don't know the history, then you need to know the history. Talking about where do you fit in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And maybe you were born here, but does that really make you Native Canadian? Just all sorts of things. When we use the words Native, Indigenous, First Nations, there's lots of different terminologies that we use, which is a whole nother topic in itself. But I just wanted to bring this to your point, to bring this to the point of things that could inhibit family-centered practice. So I'm ready for the next slide. So instead of asking those questions that I just showed you on the previous slide, what if we asked these questions? How can we make it easier for Indigenous families or staff? How can we engage families to feel welcome in our programs? How can we make it more comfortable for families to want to come back? I've heard lots of times over and over again, we see a family once, maybe twice, and we never see them again. What do I need to learn about the families or colleagues I work with? How can I learn, and what can I learn, and how can I do things different through the Truth and Reconciliation Commission? I may be Canadian, but where did my family come from? So really looking at who we are, where we come from, and understanding where Indigenous people have come from through generations and generations, and the detrimental factors that interrupted our ways of living and being. And what is my knowledge or understanding of Canadian history and Indigenous people? I think everybody has learned a lot since May about Orange Shirt Day, about the residential schools, about the poor little children that never came home. That's our truth. And you're now just hearing that truth. So putting into practice or putting in ways to understand Indigenous children and families when you're working with them really brings you to that place of respect and understanding. And when that happens, you will see families more than once or twice. They may be wanting to come back. They may reach out to you when they know that you've become a safe person for them to reach out to. So I'm really just sort of posing it to you as an opposite. You know, things are hot or cold or good or bad. Family-centered practice, there's good ways and bad ways to do that as well. And it all comes to relationships and respect. Okay. So these are terms that we always use: family-centered, family-focused. The two next ones, family-directed and family at the center. Those are family-directed is a term that's kind of popping up now, that people are thinking maybe represent more of what we really are trying to do. Some people think they're family-centered, but maybe their policies aren't. And so they're at a conflict with their policies. They may think they're family-focused, but if they're really looking at it, maybe they're more child-focused and developmental focused, which doesn't look at the whole family. So family directed is kind of giving the family that place to direct the services they need, the information they need, the help they need. And then family at the center is a term that MCFD's been kind of using lately when they're talking about that new service delivery model that I'm sure we've all heard about now. It's not new. Our leadership, our First Nations leadership, have been talking about child at the center and family at the center for many years. And again, that's where we come from. If you kind of go back to that one I showed you, the child at the center with all of the children around it. So I'm putting these photos here because I really just wanted to show family. There's happy families, and you see dads in the pictures because I think we always underrepresent fathers in our programs. I really just wanted to put fathers in there. There's a father cutting a deer with his young child, with his granddaughter in the ocean. And that's my son bringing his daughter skating, so that's my granddaughter. Okay, thank you. Next one. So ECD programs, this is all of us. And our logo has just a mother and a baby in it. And because we weren't being inclusive of fathers, and sometimes we weren't being inclusive of families or extended families, I've got two logos now for AIDP. So this is the one. There's the home that you see there. There's mom and dad and two children. And then there's 4 circles in the background. Those represent our elders and ancestors, where all of our teachings and traditions come from, that we like to bring forward when we're working with our children and families from an Indigenous perspective. So all of these services are services that work with the families. We're the ones that are connected. And so that's kind of where we're at, family-centered practice. So next one. And I just wanted to show community services, what AIDP and many of our programs and those of you out there that are working, these are other things that our family-centered support can bring. So the other slide shows what we bring to the families, and this one shows how we can help the families go out into their community for all of their other needs, not just their children, but housing, food security, healthcare, recreation, all of these things. So that's what family-centered means for AIDP, is bringing families in for support and then helping them reach out for further supports. And that's it for me. Thanks.
Hi there, Henkla, can you hear me?
Yes, all good.
Thanks, Diana and Jackie. Really great information. And like Diana said, an hour feels really short for 4 of us to be able to share so much information with you. So I feel like we are hitting the highlights. But our information, our emails are at the end of the slides if people want to get a hold of us for more information or to connect with us. So My name is Rona Sterling Collins, Quistleko from the Inklakatma Nation. I am calling in from the Merritt area where I live on a small reserve called Joyaska, and I live among my extended family. So as you know, we are dealing with severe flooding here in our city, and our city has been evacuated. Our family is on higher ground and we are on a separate water system. So at this time we're safe, but we definitely feel for our community and, you know, have seen the devastation. And so we do hope in the coming days, as, you know, repairs are underway, that people can find ways to help in whatever way you can. And not only here, but in any community that's suffering. I understand Sumas is in a really bad state of affairs right now. So I just wanted to share that because it is today's reality. I have an MSW and I've had my consulting business for 25 years. I am a mom to two and a grandma to a 2-year-old who happens to be in the other room right now with her grandpa. And our son Wyatt has autism, and this has encouraged and challenged me to become an advocate and educator for him and other Indigenous children and adults with disabilities. So I'm going to just touch a little bit on cultural safety and build on what Diana and Jackie have shared. And of course, this is a really big topic right now, especially as Diana said, with the findings of the unmarked burial grounds, you know, on all the residential schools and more are being discovered. So cultural safety, to understand the lived experiences of many Indigenous people, we need to know the colonial context, the historical and ongoing process of white European domination over Indigenous people and lands. This includes colonial policies such as the Indian Act and the legacy of the residential school system and the impact of these on Indigenous people's lives. So to be equitable and culturally safe, Indigenous nations and organizations may define cultural safety in a manner appropriate to the interests and needs of their children and youth. Cultural safety is an outcome based on respectful engagement that recognizes and strives to address power imbalances inherent in the system. It results in an environment free of racism and discrimination where people feel safe. And so this is something that is talked about a lot right now. And I think it's something that all of our programs need to be looking at and putting into policy and practice around how can you create cultural safety for everybody, but especially our Indigenous children and families. So just some things that you can think about. I mean, this topic could be its own presentation in itself. And there's lots of good information now out there on the internet and lots of good resource people on this topic. So I feel like I'm really just touching on the highlights of it, but these are some things you can do when you think about cultural safety. Do something. So having good intentions is not enough. Take action to make change. Speak out against racism. Ask questions of those with more understanding. Find allies and create a support system for yourself that can help you advocate for culturally safe approaches in your work and in your organization. Take responsibility for your own learning. So read, reflect, ask questions, and don't always expect this to come from Indigenous people. There are great Indigenous resources you can draw on, and you can ask Indigenous people, but you also need to take responsibility as well for your own learning. Take time for self-reflection. So are you aware of your own assumptions and biases? Question everything you have learned about Indigenous people and take steps to actively disrupt the stereotypes. Commit to lifelong learning. Be prepared to be uncomfortable. Understanding colonialism and the legacy of racism is an ongoing and difficult task. And incorporate culture and language into your programs. Utilize Indigenous elders and resource people. Ask Indigenous families what they would like to see in their programs. Add cultural content, cultural activities. There's so many great things that you can be doing in your programs if you aren't already. And so I think I lost one. Let me see here. What do families need? So when AIDP and ASCD was first incepted in 2007 in our nation here in the Inklakatma, we did a comprehensive needs assessment at that time to find out what families wanted. And what we heard from the parents and communities is that they wanted services designed to meet the needs of their children and families, and not just based on what the funders are saying the funding should, what the services should look like. We heard that many school-age children with special needs were not receiving adequate or any supports, and they wanted ASCD services to assist with this gap. And so our programs here in Merritt and Lytton provide services up to age 19 with more of a focus on school-age children. Services are offered in a community-based outreach format. And so what I want to highlight is that ASCD can be designed for children ages 0 to 19. And it really they should be designed based on what the needs are of your community and not just what others are doing or perhaps maybe what your funder thinks you should be doing. It really should be based on what's needed. There are communities that focus more on childcare centers, preschools, Head Starts, and that's great if that's where the need is. So I wanted to talk about this because there's not that many programs that I know of that do school-age services, and I think that is a gap. And it's just something to consider and to think about how you can do that. And it is outside of a childcare setting format. It is more community-based, after-school type services, and it works really well. So again, it's important that programs are designed to meet the needs of the children and families in whatever setting is most suitable for them. And, build on the principles that Jackie and Diana talked about, of course, that are family-centered and holistic and, individual case planning is really important. For the children, because every disability is a little bit different. And so that's the end of my section. So I'm going to hand it over to Tanya.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I just want to say thank you to the 3 colleagues of mine who came before me. I have over the years learned lots of things from them and value kind of our working relationship. I just thought before I kind of dive into my slides, I'd share a little bit about who I am for those of you who don't know me. I've been in the field of early childhood or supported child development for about 30 years now, which seems so long. That's why I'm going so gray. And a large portion of my work has been working with Indigenous communities to create early years programs. And that has been on a regional level as well as a provincial level. I'm currently working as a manager of a childcare program for Squamish Nation on reserve. And I'm a mother of 2 young adults now. It's amazing how quickly they grow. And I have also been a mother to 8 Indigenous foster children. 6 of them have been from Squamish Nation. And then the other 2 were from a different nation. And my parents' background are German and Scottish ancestry with a few other things sprinkled in there. And I share that with you because I think that is why I'm here today, is to share kind of my non-Indigenous perspective on family-centered practice and the knowledge that I've gained over the past 10 to 15 years, I don't know exactly, around my experiences working with Indigenous communities, as well as directly with Indigenous families. Thanks, Rona. It's so weird not to be doing that myself. Anyways, I was thinking a lot about this, and I thought building relationships is really the foundation. And it brought me directly to this one quote from Rupert Ross: before you understand your own culture, before you understand that your own culture dictates how you translate everything you see and hear, you will never be able to see and hear things in a different way. This really resonated with me. It was a few years after I started working with Indigenous communities, but it just really set with me in the fact that it was super important that I understand my own cultural beliefs and how they could affect my perspective when working with children and families. And just understanding a little bit more about the family systems that might be influenced by culture. And a couple of examples of this, understanding your own cultural identity and beliefs is, like we know that North American values and practice that the individual steps up and take responsibility. But a contrast to that would be it's the whole family unit, which could include, like Diana's slide around, aunties or uncles and grandmas and grandparents. And just making sure that everybody's involved in that process. So after laying that foundation, the most important aspect of building respectful relationships would be to be trustworthy. And I see this as a two-way street. It's not only to ensure that you are demonstrating that you're trustworthy, but it's also that you're trusting in the families that you're working with or the communities that you're supporting. And by maintaining open communication, keeping your promises. As we all know, there's a lot of broken promises working with Indigenous communities. So keeping promises is super important. Meeting your obligations and looking out for other people's interests, like being transparent. And making sure that you're honest and you have integrity, and without any hidden agendas. You're being very open and upfront, and I feel that a really strong component of that is actually being there to be with and to be present with, doing face-to-face meetings, whether that's a home visit, whether that's, meeting out in a park or somewhere in the community. That's super important. Can you go to the next slide, Rona? And I really like this quote from Brené Brown: trust is not built in big sweeping moments. It's built in tiny moments every day. I feel that it's super important to just always be there. Even if it's greeting a family as they're dropping off the child in the morning, coming out of my office and just saying, "Good morning, how are you, handsome?" And just making those little engaging moments over time. Just knowing that that is consistent for the family, that you're always there, you're available. I think that that's another super great opportunity to continue building trust, because we know trust can be difficult to build, and we also know that trust takes years sometimes to build, and it could take seconds to break, and repair sometimes never does happen. So these are the other key aspects I thought were important in building relationships. I kind of touched on being transparent, It goes hand in hand with being trustworthy, actually, just being open, and sharing your plans and objectives, talking about, you know, what direction with the family, about what direction the family wants to go. You know, a good example of that is this family who I was supporting directly was having a hard time getting their child to school, but didn't know how to talk with me about their challenges at the home. Once they were able to open up and they invited me into the home, we were able to kind of problem solve and put some structure in place so that they were able to, you know, get their child to school every day on time. Or not necessarily on time, but give him enough time to come to school where he was being successful and that transition was more supported. Be a good listener. You know, listen to their stories, take pieces of information that are of value to the families. Those stories tell you a lot about what the family's needs are, how the family system works, how they value, you know, their values actually, and their beliefs. You know, as a North American value is time is perceived as, you know, a clock, 7 o'clock. Maybe to a family, it's perceived as when the time is right, we will get ready for school. So it's just, when you listen to what people have to say, it can guide you in how you best support that family. Another really big one is be respectful. It's super important, as Rona mentioned, take responsibility for your own learning. I think being respectful can look like learning about that community or that family, learning about their culture, their history, you know, and if you're supporting a whole community, I used to have to kind of understand their governance and understand what other resources are coming into that community. And I wouldn't necessarily be able to have all that information at once. It was something that I would learn about and collect over time. When you're working with families, learn about their values and beliefs. You know, and learn about how they feel about raising children. What are their child rearing priorities, or what are their child rearing experiences? And really, you know, understanding that the impact of trauma, understanding cultural safety. Take the time to kind of educate yourselves about cultural safety and trauma-informed practice. Building respectful relationships will take a bit of time, but it's worth it in the end. And then you develop strong connection, a feeling of safety and security. And I think that will bring you great outcomes. Being invested, show up, do your homework, be there, get involved. If there's a community event, show up, be there, just be a face, you know, bring an activity, show up at a health fair, whatever, get involved however you can. Even if it's child minding, I did a lot of that when I was visiting communities. I would be the one hanging out with the kids and filling kind of in where you are. So with that, I say also be adaptable. I remember this one situation where I went to a community that's very isolated, and you know, I was mentoring somebody to use a support guide actually, and the situation came up where all of a sudden we needed to harvest the garden because there was a storm coming. So I took that opportunity to kind of work with the person I was mentoring and a family in the garden as we were harvesting tomatoes and carrots and etc. And I would walk through the support guide questions with that family while we were in the garden, and then had the opportunity after to talk with that staff about, you know, this is how we adapt and this is how we continue to support the family, see where their interests were, which was harvesting that garden, and still kind of get a piece of the work that we needed to get done. be patient. I think that is also very valuable and touches on a couple of the questions that Diana presented to you around, you know, again, looking back at our own values and beliefs around what we expect around timing or follow-up. Just be patient and trust that families are invested in what you have to offer and that they will be there. And I put this little quote up there because I think it's super important to remember, be with someone who wants to see you grow. If you can't feel that for a family that you're supporting, then it will be real. It's time to do, you know, like to take Rona's words, to self-reflect. You know, why is this an obstacle for me? And how come, you know, like, why is this affecting my relationship with this family? And I think that is the last slide of mine. So Rona.
Thank you so much, Tanya. Those are such great points. You know what I realized, folks, is that I accidentally deleted a slide when I was making some tweaks. And I forgot to include my slide on home visiting. So I'll just quickly recap the key points of what I remember, and it will be, I'll add it back in. It'll be in the slide that gets sent out to you. My apologies on that.
Rona, would you like me to bring it up?
If you have the slideshow from earlier.
I have it. If you want, I can put it up for your reference. Sure. If you,
yeah, that'd be great.
Awesome. Sure.
My apologies.
Here it is.
Thank you so much. Yes. I was wondering, I thought, geez, I'm missing something, or either that I talked really fast, but again, this can be its own whole training topic, but we wanted to just emphasize the importance of home visiting, and that AIDP and ASCD can be conducted in a home visiting format or outreach format where the services reach out to the families. And this can be in the family's home or in a community-based setting. Home visiting helps to bridge parent and family involvement in your program. And it's a great way to reach families who do not attend center-based programs. And it helps to accommodate transportation and isolation issues that many families face. And it encourages parents as baby's first teacher. And it is a way to provide support and education to the parents. And it's a way to offer additional support, such as screening and assessments, parenting information, developmental information, linkages to other resources, and that kind of thing to parents. And there's probably other great benefits that I didn't capture, but those are some highlights around why home visiting is so important. And it's something that I think is really helpful, especially for AIDP services. So not just expect families to always come to the center, that you as the AIDP staff can get out there to the homes to see the families. Thank you, Erica, for putting that up.
Thank you, Rona, for filling that one in. Actually, that was going to be my first question, because I knew that that was an important point to bring up, and I wanted to make sure that we cover it today. And thank you all for your fabulous insights. And I'm so glad that we have some time for questions. There's some that have been coming in, so if you're okay, I'll just jump in with a couple of them. There was one that it was actually from one of the pieces that you mentioned, Rona, in the examples. If you could give an example from what is typically offered in a program that is different from what actually families are looking for. Do you have a couple of examples about that? You know, when you were talking about sometimes the programs offer things that are different from what actually the families are looking for. So if you have found something that particularly stands out in that.
Well, I think a big thing is that you find out what's needed and try to, you know, wrap your services around the families based on what they need. So our programs here in Lytton and Merritt. For ASCD, there's been a high demand for school age supports. So that's not to say we don't support little ones as well, but we just don't have the resources and staff to put full-time people into childcare centers. So we still rely on Mainstream SCD as our partners to help provide that service. And we can share consulting supports. And that has been verified with MCFD. We went through a whole bunch of meetings in the interior here around that. So both programs can claim the numbers for your stats. But you know, you may have shared consulting, or the ASCD may do more of the consulting and the paperwork, but SCD may help provide the one-to-one in the childcare centers. So that's one example. Another one is, of course, possibly providing school age support. So what we do is we have one-to-one support workers who work after school. So I tend to try to hire educational assistants from school districts who are already trained and great with kids, and maybe want to pick up some extra hours after school to provide supports to kids and in a one-to-one setting. So some of the things we do with these kids are reinforcing literacy and math and things that are identified in their IEPs. We provide lots of life skills opportunities and a lot of social and communication supports, because these are often the challenges that we're seeing. And the kids, well, if we had more resources and staff, we could offer more, but right now each of the kids gets one session a week after school for about 2 hours. And we pick them up after school, they come to our center, they have their session, and then they're driven home by our staff. So that's an example of some ways that we're doing ASCD. That's maybe a little bit different than the norm. And again, I'm not saying it's the right way, I'm just saying it's another way. So thank you for that question.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that, Ron. I think many times the programs or the description of certain policies that need to be followed kind of restrict these ideas, but in finding these ways of really coming to the communities and meeting the needs of the families and what they are looking for. And I go to the principles that Tanya shared. The big one for me has been listening, right? Just listen and be there and your presence and involve yourself in understanding what they are looking for. So I think that is very valuable. And there's this one question that it's probably more from also from a programming, because this person is sharing, I'm thinking about ASCD services that are offered until the age of 19, really, but not many programs, in her experience, provide support past age 6. So the question is, there have to be a certain amount of need for the services to be provided. If just one child could use support, that should be enough. She's understanding that staffing is often a barrier to services being offered, but how can programs be supported to provide services past age 6? Would this lie with the agency or come provincially? And I'm probably here, I'm going to lean in a little bit on Jackie or Diana, your experience as having the view from provincially. I wonder, Jackie, if you would like to offer a comment on that one.
So we do go up to 18 for after school activities, and usually it is with an extra support activity worker who has background in working with children for their specific individual plan. However, it is really difficult to find the people to help to work with children, because it takes a certain you have to have the qualifications, you have to have experience, you have to have, and not everyone understands that this is an opportunity to work with children who would love to be able to participate in activities outside of school. And I remember working with a activity, not an activity aid, sorry, I've got the the title wrong, but a support worker who this child who was 12 years old and he wanted to go swimming, but he had a hard time adapting to being overwhelmed as soon as they would walk into the center, the aquatic center, because the noise and the lights and so the support worker would help the child adapt, and that was through a number of family meetings and the child knowing everybody's concerns, and it's a great opportunity. And the child, in the end, after probably 10 sessions, was okay to be able to participate in after school activities. But it is really complicated. I mean, it's really hard to find the support, the resources, and the anyway. It can work. There's so many gaps in terms of being able to fill roles to help support children who would benefit tremendously from those kinds of supports. I don't know if I answered the question. I kind of went on a, sorry.
It's in the right direction, certainly. Diana.
I just wanted to add the reason why AIDP goes up to age 6 and the reason ASCD tries to go up to 18 and 19 years old is because we so know that there's gaps in service. AIDP's been around since 1992, so we're celebrating 30 years this year. 30 years ago, we didn't have Head Start programs. We didn't have on-reserve daycares or preschools. There was no way we were going to end at 3 and leave a 2-year gap until children could go to kindergarten. And now we have K4, now we have Head Start programs. So we've just always maintained that because we weren't going to have a gap in service. And I think the same thing for ASCD. There's a huge gap in service after age 6 until Community Living BC. And if there's any way ASCD can fill that gap somehow, they work at it. And some programs only do go up to age 6, but again, it is a program and an agency decision and funding decision. So not all of our ASCDs do go up to there, but it is, even though we have provincial coordination for both AIDP and ASCD, every community or every nation has their own priorities and their own commitments and their own funding and resources. So I just wanted to fill that in there to say that we so recognize we had to fill gaps and we've worked really hard at it. And I think that's why ASCD has been working closely or more closely with CLBC to try to get those needs met through the transition time for children who will be transitioning out of ASCD. So I just wanted to add that in there.
Thank you so much, Diana. Very, very important. And it's this creativity, but I love the focus on the community-based and community-focused type of resources. That's what we are getting to. And I think that all the pillars that you have shared today and how we respectfully connect and understand. And I really appreciate your view, Tanya. And actually, there's a question here that maybe you can share, or others are also welcome to share. There's a person saying, like, being an immigrant and wanting to learn more, where can we find the resources? How can we research where to find the resources to learn? Provide a little bit of guidance.
Well, the first thing that, and it's so funny when you're presenting and you've got all these notes and you don't even say them. The one thing I wanted to raise is actually Jackie Watts manages a program called the Partnerships Project. And one of the modules in there is called Family-Centered Practice. There is a strong cultural component to that module. So that is available if anybody wanted to contact Jackie Watts. But I also think Diana, Elliot, as well as Jackie and Rona, for that matter, are great resources themselves. They could look, if you contacted them, they could hook you up with, some cultural safety training or trauma-informed practice. I know BC Council for Children and Families offers some cultural safety training and other things, home visiting and a bunch of other things. But I think the three ladies that you see here today are great resources.
Thank you so much, Dana. And I think that there's a lot of people wanting to find that guidance. And what I want to invite everyone here is just the fact first that you are here today, listening in and putting yourself in the learner position and say like, I need to find more. And that this really resonates with me when you were mentioning like the self-reflection, what I know, and be curious about what I don't, and then start and take action. I hope that we don't feel frozen by the fact that, oh, I don't know all these things, I'm going to make a huge mistake. Make the first step, and just being here is, I hope it was a safe space to receive information, to find some resources to start working. And you will receive the email from our presenters who have been very kind in offering their email addresses to connect directly with them and keep learning on what cultural safety will mean, how we actually work on building that and creating safe communities and environment for our Indigenous children and those children who have different cultural backgrounds as well. And we'll continue working on that. There's one question that was asked, but it was addressed in the chat, and thank you for that. So I'm just going to point it out that the Aboriginal Infant Development programs, we live in a world of acronyms, so we try our best to go through them, right? The Aboriginal Infant Development Program is a self-referral program for supports, no diagnosis needed. And the Aboriginal Supported Child Development Program usually requires a diagnosis or have one in process as the assessment, the assessment is done, needs identify and provide the supports and contact with the agencies for the before. Usually the Supported Child Development programs support the before and after school programs, and the Aboriginal Supported Child Development programs as well, and making it in a cultural responsive way, right?
Sure.
Yeah, and I wonder if there's one person, I know we all love to chat, our session is coming to an end, but is there one last message that any of you would like to share, or I will go to our final announcements for this session?
I'd like to add one, and I'll make it really quick. If everybody thinks, listen to this word, Aitstanis. Aitstanis. In my community, in my nation, that means good neighbors. That's mean good to each other. And if I can say anything about the Truth and Reconciliation, about the history of Canada, if we can just look at each other as good neighbors and respect each other instead of us and them when it comes to living in a community or having an AIDP and an IDP in the same community, we'll just stay Aitstanis and we'll be good neighbors and good to each other. Haitska.
Thank you so much, Diana. We as a community, our beautiful collection of humans with different experiences and backgrounds. Thank you, Jackie, Diana, Rona, and Tanya for sharing all your wisdom and your expertise with us today. We have learned a lot. There's great comments in the chat. Thank you all of you for joining for this learning opportunity. If you'd like to share this session with friends and colleagues, the recording will be available on Inclusion BC's virtual learning website in a couple of weeks with the handouts, so you can also review it. You will receive an email after this session with a short survey that we hope you can help us to fill in. Hearing your feedback help us to see what's going well, what we can do better, and we can also share the impact of this event with our funder and supporters. And if you want to learn more about National Indigenous Disability Awareness Month, you can visit the website of the British Columbia Aboriginal Network on Disability Society, BCANS, another acronym. The link will be on the chat. Claire is going to help us to put it on the chat. You can follow them on social media or join the multiple initiatives that are being done around the province and the world, I gotta say, to raise awareness and show allyship. And my last piece, I would say we're excited to share that our Inclusion BC conference will be held in person in next May 2022 in beautiful Surrey. The call for workshops will be open in November 25th. So if you want to consider submitting a proposal, visit our website for the details on how to forward a presentation for the conference. Is the biggest event on disability related themes in our province, and we hope many of you can make it in May and see each other in person, which would be really, really lovely when we can be in the same space together again. In the meantime, everyone, please be safe, be a good neighbor. Thank you for that lesson, Diana Aitstanis. I think I'm getting there. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here today. I wish you a lovely rest of your day. Be safe, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.